Hello, my name is Jouni Vilkka and this is my channel TFF Teacher from Finland. This video is part of my series Introduction to Ethics, and here I begin talking about metaethical theories, or theories about what ethics is really about. Such theories are not meant to tell us what is right or wrong, or what norms we should adopt. That is what normative ethics is for, and that will be dealt with in due course. Instead, metaethical theories are attempts to seek the foundations of any kind of morals, the source of values, a standard or set of criteria for choosing our norms, the rules or guidelines to live by. It is possible for two people to agree on normative ethics, the rules by which we ought to live, while disagreeing about the basic metaethical question, what those rules or morals are based on. Similarly, while it may be less likely, two people can agree on that basic metaethical question while disagreeing on what specific norms should be followed. Because of the fundamental nature of metaethical theories, which have to do with things like metaphysics, epistemology, and philosophy of language, it is important to have some basic idea of at least the most common theories. There are many of them, and in this video I will explain how different metaethical theories can be categorized to make some sense of them all. If you are interested in philosophical ethics, perhaps you should consider subscribing to my channel. All other theories of ethics claim to show the basis for ethical norms or morals, but one does not. Nihilism is the view that there is no such basis. There are no objective values, no source for common morality. It can be thought of as the position where a philosopher may end up in after coming to the conclusion that there is no plausible foundation for ethics. And this is, as far as I know, what Nietzsche meant when he declared that God is dead, we killed him. But this was not the end, really, for Nietzsche's view on values, in a way, takes this as just the starting point. His idea of an overman, Übermensch, is an individual who is able to create or choose his own values. Instead of merely following the morals thrust upon him, he discards them and chooses what he finds valuable in life, striving heroically to achieve that goal. Similarly, for Marx, the working class, proletariat, must refuse the morals of society, which are in place only to support the ruling and owning class, capitalists. After the eventual revolution and founding of the communist system, where class distinctions no longer exist, the people will adopt new morals suitable for the equitable society of the future. Marx apparently did not make further claims about the specifics of that ethical system. As both of those examples suggest, nihilism doesn't actually have to be a real endpoint of theoretical ethics, but just a cleaning of the slate for a new, radical start. But, of course, that will not be necessary if one of the other theories of ethics actually succeeds. If the theories fail and no new start is offered, we are left with a rather displeasing situation, where we would have to accept that nothing really matters. Before plunging into despair, let's at least give the other theories a chance, shall we? To give a general outline of the different types of ethical theories, it is useful to group them according to some criteria. For example, some theories claim that moral truths can be known. This is called cognitivism. Theories that disagree with that can obviously be labeled as forms of non-cognitivism. For example, emotivism asserts that moral statements are not really making truth claims, but rather expressing emotions and attitudes. A person stating that kicking dogs is wrong is just expressing their attitude, not an ontological truth about the fundamental nature of reality. Prescriptivism is a very similar view, but instead of just expressing our emotions, it considers moral language to be essentially prescriptive. It interprets the sentence, kicking dogs is wrong, as meaning the commandment, do not kick dogs. Both of these views are thus types of non-cognitivism. Cognitivism claims that the statement, kicking dogs is wrong, is not just an opinion, but actually a statement with a truth value. It is either true or false. For example, intuitionism is the view that the truth of the statement is obvious through intuition. You just know it's true. Other types of cognitivism give different explanations for how such things can be known. Perhaps a bit unexpectedly, there is a type of cognitivism that is only technically a form of cognitivism, while otherwise a poor fit in this crowd. That is error theory. As the name implies, this is the view that we can actually know the truth value of moral claims, but that is only because they are all false. If you make a moral statement, you just make an error, because moral values do not exist according to this view. One class of theories is in a way similar to error theory. I am referring to relativism, which denies an objective truth. The claim of relativism being that truth is relative to the person making the claim. There are different kinds of relativism, such as subjectivism and cultural relativism, and I will return to them later. There are some candidates for a name for the group of theories that disagree with relativism. One suggestion is universalism. Whereas moral relativism claims that the truth of a moral statement depends on who makes the statement, a moral universalist would instead assert that the true moral laws, values and such are actually true to all moral agents, regardless of their cultural context, subjective features, the historical era, and so on. What is good has always been good for everyone, and the same goes for what is evil. Or possibly some versions of universalism could accept that there has been development in ethics so that in the past people did not know any better, so they could not have been expected to follow our more advanced moral views. But most universalists, as far as I know, would not accept even that view. That is because they think that moral values are real in the same way as objects are real, that moral facts exist. Thus, their view can be called objectivism or realism. An important point needs to be made here. Remember how I stressed that cognitivism is an epistemological view? Well, realism, or objectivism if you prefer that term, is a metaphysical, or more precisely, an ontological view. This means that a typical cognitivist, someone who believes that they know moral truths, is also a realist because they think they know what really exists. Theories that don't accept the reality of moral facts are called non-realism or anti-realism. Some anti-realists think that moral judgments are senseless. Others, like the types of non-cognitivists mentioned earlier, think that there is a meaningful use for moral language, It's just that they don't think such moral talk is factual. Of course, it is difficult to argue for moral realism convincingly. Platonic idealism is one attempt to defend realism, but relies on a more generally problematic view, that of idealism itself. Idealism, also known as metaphysical or conceptual realism, claims that general concepts somehow exist as independent entities. In recent times, it has been more common to appeal to natural facts as the foundation for morals. This is the thinking behind naturalism. Things that cause suffering or pleasure seem to be morally relevant, and most people can probably see a connection between violence and evil, as well as pleasure and good. Of course, it is not that easy to show exactly how that would work, so I will have to return to these theories later as well. There is another approach to universalism. This is the idea that morals are actually constructed in some way. And so these theories can be called forms of universal constructivism. The exact type of constructivism depends on who does the constructing. The most common type of belief about morals among all people is supernaturalism, as most people are religious and believe that the source of morals is not in this natural world of ours, but in a supernatural realm. For example, a god has given us a moral code we are supposed to follow. Or perhaps reality is just allegedly fundamentally such that it is useful to construct and obey certain kinds of morals, in order to escape a cycle of rebirths, for example. These forms of supernaturalism are thus types of constructivism. There are other types of universal constructivism based on the use of free and mature reason, Kantian constructivism, on the common assent of good-natured people, sentimentalism, or the rules of a good society, for example, contractualism. These have been the most common ways of defining and categorizing different metaethical theories. Don't worry if all this seems a bit confusing. I will explain these theories in more detail in the following videos. To see those videos, be sure to subscribe and possibly also click the notification bell. Bye for now. If you wish to support my channel, please click thumbs up, subscribe and share my videos. Any comments on the videos would also be welcome.